Hello, fantastic fellow Earthlings. I promised, and now I'm going to deliver. This is a D&D special where we are going to talk about the two recent mass shootings that actually got covered in the news. Fascism, communism, socialism, the alt-right, and how all of these things are on the same end of the political spectrum. And I'm making this special because in the wake of El Paso, I have had to hear so many times that this nut job was right wing. Not only right wing, but far right wing. And that simply is not true. It simply is not true. Because on the political spectrum, the further left you are, you already know. The further left you are, the more socialized and collectivized your government is. Whereas the further right you are, the more capitalist it is. That is the way that the spectrum has always worked. And I am failing to understand how a nazo-fascist, a nazo-socialist, is somehow far right wing. Because the far right wing is anarcho-capitalists and libertarians. There's no room for neo-Nazism, nazo-fascism, nazo-socialism in anarcho-capitalism, or in libertarianism, or in conservatism. It's just, there's no room for it. So, we are going to talk about these things. And, I want to start off by looking at some of the things that these people said. We're going to look at El Paso and Dayton and determine who these people are, what their political ideologies are, and then we're going to break that down. So, let's start with some particularly interesting parts of the El Paso Shooters Manifesto. To again note that this person was not right-wing. He was not far right-wing, he was not near right-wing, he was not right-wing at all. He was left-wing. Fascism is a product of socialism. Okay, so you tell me if a conservative would say any of these things. Continued immigration will make one of the biggest issues of our time, automation, so much worse. Some sources say that in under 2 decades, half of American jobs will be lost to it. Of course, some people will be retrained, but most will not. So it makes no sense to keep on letting millions of illegal and legal immigrants flood into the United States and to keep the tens of millions that are already here. That is not a capitalist idea. It's not. In fact, there should have been some... here we go. Many factions within the Republican Party are pro-corporation. Pro-corporation equals pro-immigration. It's also not a corporate thing, it's a capitalist thing. For some factions within the Republican Party, don't prioritize corporations over our future, so Democrats are nearly unanimous with their support of immigration while the Republicans are divided over it. I'm just going to go ahead and let y'all know, if you haven't read this 4-page manifesto, he rails against capitalism, he rails against corporations, and he rails against the Republicans. So it's going to be a really hard sell for y'all to get me to believe that this guy was far right-wing, which is what I'm being told to believe. He's supposed to be far right-wing, but he's railing against capitalist ideas and the only conservative party in America. Well, I mean, the Libertarian Party, but that's a joke. Anyway, makes a spiel about that. Then goes on a spiel about automation and how immigration is going to hurt American economy. That stuff is straight out of the Stalinist playbook. Straight out of the Stalinist playbook. It is not a capitalist ideology. We encourage immigration. Okay. The American lifestyle affords our citizens an incredible quality of life. However, our lifestyle is destroying the environment of our country. The decimation of our environment is creating a massive burden for future generations. Corporations are heading the destruction of our environment by shamelessly over-harvesting resources. This has been a problem for decades. For example, this phenomenon is brilliantly portrayed in the decades-old classic, The Lorax. Watersheds around the country, especially in agricultural areas, are being depleted. Fresh water is being polluted from farming and oil drilling operations. Consumer culture is creating thousands of tons of unnecessary plastic waste and electronic waste, and recycling to help slow this down is almost non-existent. Urban sprawls create inefficient cities which unnecessarily destroy millions of acres of land. We even use God knows how many trees worth of paper towels just to wipe water off of our hands. Most of y'all are just too stubborn to change your lifestyle, so the next logical step is to decrease the number of people in America using resources. If we can get rid of enough people, then our way of life can become more sustainable. That is absolutely from the eco-terror left. That is straight from, like, I'm not trying to throw Greenpeace itself underneath the bus here, but they have extremists who support Greenpeace who say that exact same crap. That exact same stuff comes out of their mouths. This dude was from the left. He was absolutely from the left. He was an environmental extremist. He was anti-capitalist. He hated the Republican Party. And he thought that the biggest reason why illegal immigrants or legal immigrants should not be allowed into the country is because it was going to negatively impact the economic status of people who are already here. Which, if y'all don't know anything about the trade unions in the early 20th century America, that was the case that they made for getting rid of illegal and legal immigration. I mean, I am a carpenter, construction worker, remodeler by trade. This stuff, immigration did destroy the trade union that was established for the trade that I work in. And hold on a second, I'm going to turn on a light. Oh my goodness, okay. But yeah, this dude was a unionist. He was a economic extremist. He was an anti-capitalist. And I keep being told that this guy was a far right-wing terrorist. But I'm not seeing any evidence for that so far. I'm not. And we're going to talk about the dude from Dayton, and we're going to actually switch over back to this, because the article that I found talking about his political ideologies has his face and name plastered everywhere. And we're going to make a separate video eventually about how everyone in the media has been told at this point that plastering the names and faces of shooters on television and on social media leads to copycat terrorism. In this particular case, the Dayton shooter had been following the El Paso shooting media and social media very, very closely. He became obsessed with it, and it is very likely the reason that he carried out the attack that he did. But yeah, we're going to talk about some of the stuff of his political ideology, because we know that this person was a supporter of Antifa. He considered himself to be on the far left. He was a Satanist. And he was very active on Twitter. And he retweeted a tweet from a page called Millions of Dead Landlords. So we know this is someone on the left. Bernie Sanders' voice. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. He retweets it with the caption, yes. Okay, so we know already that he hates capitalism, and he hates the fact that, you know, we're doing well in this world. Millennials have a message for Joe Biden's generation. Hurry up and die. I want socialism, and I'll not wait for the idiots to finally come around to understanding. And so I'm drinking a craft beer there. One of his friends tweeted a picture of Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris with the caption, I mean, co-presidents. And he replies back, nah, but only because Harris is a cop, Warren I'd happily vote for. So he is a socialist. He is a socialist. Let's see, was there anything else interesting in this article other than the fact that his face is in it, like, 36 times. Oh my God. Oh, it's terrible. Okay. But yeah, so the shooter in Dayton was also on the left, and you can tell because there's a little bit of intersection between these two shooters. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. So, what is a left-wing philosophy and a right-wing philosophy? Although on the screen, I guess this is left and this is right because it's mirrored. But yes, what are they? Where does the idea that Nazo-fascism, which is Nazo-socialism, is on the right wing end of the spectrum? I have not seen any proof of that, because the problem with the argument. Okay, let me back it up. So let's talk about the alt-right. Okay, I think we can all agree that these are the people that are being called the right-wing extreme organization. And there's the prick, Dick Spencer, right there. Everybody hates him, including myself. Cannot stand him. And this is a really good article from Washington Examiner called "The Alt-Right is Not Truly Right." And in this, he talks about Richard Spencer being anti-Republican, anti-capitalist, talking about, here's a nice one, agreeing with Karl Marx. Marx was kind of right. Bourgeoisie capitalism created an indifferent and alienating proletarian mass. Alienated proletariat mass. Y'all see it. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. But yeah, there aren't very many capitalists who use words like proletariat or proletarian. That's not really something that we do. Democratic socialist countries that had northern European populations were wildly prosperous in the 20th century. That's actually a lie. That's actually a lie. They were in the very beginning of the 20th century until they socialized. And then they fell apart like a flan in a cupboard. But yes, this lovely article, if you want to go check it out, really highlights how Richard Spencer, who is the leader of the alt-right, is anything other than right-wing. And that's why they call themselves alt-right. It is an alternative to the right wing. Alt-right, alternative to the right. But for some reason, people can't grasp that. Their minds cannot wrap around this concept. So, since we know that Dick Spencer is a devout neo-Nazi, a supporter of the platform of the German Socialist Workers Party, let's take a look at the German Socialist Workers Party. And we're going to do a little bit of an exercise here. So if you want to find it, you can go over here to the Jewish Virtual Library, and they have the entire platform written out. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just open that up. Nope, that is not it. Other one, that one. Okay. So, this is the platform of the German Socialist Workers Party. Now, notice that the word socialist is in the name of their party, and they are a labor party. So, number one, we demand the uniting of all Germans within one greater Germany on the basis of the right to self-determination of nations. 2, we demand equal rights for the German people with respect to other nations and the annulment of the peace treaty at Versailles and Saint-Germain. 3, we demand land and soil to feed our people and settle our excess population. 4, our nationals can be the citizens of the state. Only persons of German blood can be nationals regardless of religious affiliation. No Jew can therefore be a German national. 5, any person who is not a citizen will be able to live in Germany only as a guest and must be subject to the legislation for aliens. 6, only a citizen is entitled to decide the leadership and laws of the state. We therefore demand that only citizens may hold public office, regardless of whether it is a national, state, or local office. We oppose the corrupting parliamentary custom of making party considerations and not character and ability the criterion for appointments to official positions. 7. We demand that the state make it its duty to provide opportunity of employment first of all for its own citizens. It is not possible to maintain the entire population of the state. Then foreign nationals are to be expelled from the Reich, or the government. 8. Any further immigration of non-Germans is to be prevented. We demand that all non-Germans who enter Germany after August 2nd, 1914 be forced to leave the Reich without delay. 9. All German citizens must have equal rights and duties. 10. It must be the first duty of every citizen to carry out intellectual or physical work. Individual activity must not be harmful to the public interest and must be pursued within the framework of the community and for the general good. We therefore demand 11. The abolition of all income obtained without labor or effort. Break the servitude of interest. 12. In view of the tremendous sacrifices in property and blood demanded of our nation by every war, personal gain from the war must be termed a crime against the nation. We therefore demand the total confiscation of all war profits. 13. We demand the nationalization of all enterprises converted into corporations or trusts. 14. We demand profit sharing in large enterprises. 15. We demand the large-scale development of old age pension schemes. I love how they use the word scheme. 16. We demand the creation and maintenance of a sound middle class, the immediate communalization of large department stores which are to be leased at low rates to small tradesmen. We demand the most careful consideration for the owners of small businesses and orders placed by national, state, or community authorities. 17. We demand land reform in accordance with our national needs and a law for expropriation without compensation of land for public uses. Abolition of ground rent and prevention of all speculation in land. 18. We demand ruthless battle against those who harm the common good by their activities. Persons committing base crimes against the people, usurers, profiteers, etc. are to be punished by death without regard to religion or race. 19. We demand the replacement of Roman law, which serves a materialistic world order, by German law. 20. In order to make higher education, and thereby entry into leading positions, available to every able and industrious German, the state must provide a thorough restructuring of our entire public education system, so on and so forth. 21. The state must raise the level of national health by means of mother and child care, the banning of juvenile labor, achievements of physical fitness through legislation or compulsory gymnastics and sports, and maximizing support for all organizations providing physical training for young people. 22. We demand the abolition of hireling troops and the creation of a national army. 23. We demand laws to fight against deliberate political lies and the dissemination by the press. Fake news. And then it goes on for all of the things that they require. 24. We demand freedom for all religious denominations, provided that they do not endanger the existence of the state or offend the concepts of decency and morality of the Germanic race. 25. To carry out all of the above laws, the creation of a strong central authority in the Reich, unquestioned authority by the political central parliament over the entire Reich and over its organizations in general. The establishment of trade and professional organizations to enforce the Reich's basic laws on the individual state. So, if you notice there's a lot of left-wing propaganda. Like, basically 80% of it is nothing but Labor Party propaganda. So, let's take a look at this and make a comparison to what is considered the far left ideology, communism. What differentiates this from communism? Okay, well, that's actually really simple. We remove this one about religious freedom, and then we go up here to the tool and replace German with party. Replace all. And there you have it. There's Stalin's platform. We did two things. We got rid of the platform about religious freedom, and then we replaced every instance where it says German with party. And the entire thing lines up to Stalinist communism in the Soviet Union. But I'm guaranteed that Nazi-fascism is a far right-wing ideology. Strange, don't you think? And there are people who are going to say, oh, well, the Soviet Union wasn't as racist as the fascists, and that's what makes the fascists far right compared to the communists, because the communists were pro-immigrant. Okay. So, to go ahead and dispel that myth, we're going to bring up this, which is from Dima Vorobiev, who is a former Soviet propaganda executive. So he actually worked for the KGB in disinformation. What did he have to say that the communist Soviet Union had to say about immigration? We had a period when tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of foreigners lived and worked in the country. Starting from the end of the NEP era, they were instrumental in setting up the 1,500 industrial objects we bought in the West and transferring the knowledge needed for taking it all into use. Almost all were sent away towards the end of the 1930s. Those remaining mostly disappeared into the gulags. Some went down in history as founding fathers of our military-industrial complex. Before World War II, our immigration policy became extremely restrictive. Our overseas spies and agents of influence enjoyed, of course, full protection. We took foreign communists that risked persecution at home, but were very judicious about that. Many members of the Spanish interbrigades and Republicans disappeared into the gulags. Several German and Austrian communists were handed back to the Nazis after Stalin and Hitler became friends in 1939. So understand this. If you weren't a communist, you were going to die under Soviet Union law. And even if you were a communist, you were probably going to die under Soviet Union law. Very pro-immigrant. We were happy to receive anyone on our soil under two conditions. They needed to be known or prospective friends of the USSR. Some Soviet-friendly organization or persons had to vouch for your credentials. So you could only get there if someone who was already there vouched on their life that you were not a bad person. Oh, hello.
Hi.
And he also said they had to leave the country before our minders and secret operatives got too exhausted tracking their movement in local contexts. So the implicit result of staying too long is that they get tired of tracking you, so they just killed you. That was the Soviet immigration policy. So, what is the right wing? What is capitalism? Let's talk about it. Capitalism, the essentials of capitalism at capitalism.org. So I'm pretty sure this is a credible source. Ethics, rational self-interest. Capitalism is the social system that leaves the individual free to be moral, free to act by reason in the pursuit of one's self-interest or happiness. Political capitalism is individualism. Politically, capitalism is the social system of laissez-faire that regards the individual as a sovereign, independent being with the inalienable right to their own life. Good luck getting that in a communist country. Legal system, objective law. Legally, capitalism operates under the rule of objective law as opposed to an arbitrary rule of man, whose fundamental purpose is the protection of the individual rights. Capitalist economics is the free market. Economically, when freedom under a rule of objective law is applied to the sphere of production and trade, it results in the free market. Capitalist culture is peace, progress, and human flourishing. Culturally, when freedom is applied to personal relationships, the arts, technology, and the sciences, it leads to human flourishing, peace, and progress. So let's pull up that original the platform, the Nazi platform. Sorry, YouTube. The German Socialist Workers Platform, since you can't say the N-word on YouTube anymore. So let's, we did the thing where we took out what the communists disagreed with, which was one of them. Let's take out the ones that the capitalists disagree with. There's your right wing. There's your far right wing ideology. Nothing that the German Socialist Workers Party, the communists, the shooter in Dayton, or the shooter in El Paso fits into right-wing ideology. Especially not far right-wing ideology, which is anarcho-capitalism and libertarianism, which is capitalism on steroids, which I love. So, I hope that we have dispelled this myth that somehow this fascist in El Paso was a far right-wing terrorist, because he was actually, in reality, a far left-wing terrorist. And the sooner that people on the left can acknowledge that, the sooner we can get back to having rational conversations again, instead of me having to get on here constantly to correct the words of idiots who go out in the media and make these smear jobs baselessly. Okay, so next time we're going to talk about how plastering the faces and names of shooters in the media and on the interwebs actually leads to more of them, and how every single person in the media has been notified of this, and how they are actually doing this stuff. Like, I was watching today, the Today Show on NBC, yes, and they were doing like a little slideshow of the El Paso and Dayton shooters, where they were showing their high school pictures and all these pictures of them smiling and talking about how they were just such misunderstood kids. That stuff is intentionally done to create more copycats. So, and I don't have a solution for what to do to the media about that because of the First Amendment. But I'm going to think about it, and that will be the subject matter of our next video. So, until then, I hope that we don't have any more of these shootings. I hope that we can get our act together as a country and stop being intentionally misinforming about what is going on, which is what's happening with the El Paso shooter, his manifesto, and all the political talking heads on mainstream media trying to label him a right-wing terrorist, because no one on the right wing is willing to accept this guy's ideologies. None of us. None of us. Okay. I will see you all later. I love you. Have a fantastic day, and stay vigilant.